Good morning and welcome to Bowman's Nose here on Dartmoor. And I'm out this morning with my Nikon Z8 to look at a new feature that came in with Firmware 2.0, and that is pixel shift shooting. It claims to reduce noise, give better color reproduction and give you high resolution RAW files. But is it of any use for the landscape photographer? Well, in this video, we're going to look at how you use it, and then we'll go back and I'll show you how to merge those files, and then we'll have a look at some of the photographs that I've been capturing over the last few months with this feature to see if it is something you would use as a landscape photographer. So what is pixel shift shooting? Well, it's a feature of Firmware 2.0 and above for the Nikon Z8, but it was also a shipping feature of the Nikon ZF. So everything, hopefully, that I say about pixel shift shooting on the Z8 also applies to the Nikon ZF as well. But the goal of this technology is to allow you to capture shots that reduce color fringing, reduce noise, improve color reproduction, and it allows you to create high megapixel RAW files. I think on the Z8 it's about 180 megapixels. And the way it does this, well, it does this it's quite an interesting process. And actually, if you want to know a bit more of technical detail of it, I'll include a link for Nikon's excellent article on their website. I'll put that in the video description below. But essentially what it does is it takes a series of shots, and each time it takes a shot, it moves the center either by a pixel or by half a pixel, so it moves about. And then you get all these individual RAW files that the camera captures, and it does this all automatically as part of a sequence. You don't have to press it up to, well, I think you can do up to 32 shots. You don't have to press the shutter 32 times. You just set it going, and away it goes, and it captures 32 RAW files. And then you go back home, and then you can merge those files together, and you create a single NEFX file, and then you edit it just as you would do normally. But as landscape photographers, we know rarely does the landscape sit still for particularly long. So if you're taking a sequence of shots, maybe 32 shots, how does that translate if stuff's been moving between those 32 shots? So those are the kind of things that I will look at when we review the photographs that I've been capturing with the Nikon Z8. First of all, though, I'm going to show you how easy it is to use pixel shift shooting. Okay, let's look at how you use pixel shift shooting. It's quite easy. You go into the menu, it's under photo shooting menu. I've actually got pixel shift shooting under the My menu for quick access. In fact, if you want to know how I set my Nikon Z8 up for landscape photography, I've done a free guide that you can download. There's also a video to go with it. I'll include a link for that in the video description below. But you go into photo shooting menu, and currently, at least anyway, it's the second from the bottom of the options list. It's marked pixel shift shooting. So you go into there, and let's have a look at the options. So you've got, first one is number of shots. So if we go up to the top there, you've got 4, 8, 16 or 32. So it says here 4 gives you better color reproduction. If you shoot 8, it gives you better color reproduction and less noise. With 16, you get better color reproduction, but you get a high resolution file as well. And with 32, you get less noise, better color reproduction, and you get a high resolution file. I'm going to do 32. It's super calm here this morning, very rare for Dartmoor, so I think I feel pretty confident taking 32 shots. Delay, so this is a delay the camera puts in from the moment you press the shutter button to when it actually starts the sequence. I've got it in 2 seconds. It allows me to press the shutter button, step away from the camera, let it stabilize, and then it takes its sequence. Then you've got interval to next shot. Now I had to look this one up because I wasn't quite sure why you want to have an interval between each shot in the sequence. Well, apparently it's because you can use this with flash as well, and having an interval allows the flash to recharge between each shot. Imagine that might be quite useful for things like product photography. Not very useful for me though, so that's just going to be on 0 seconds. So I've got number of shots 32, delay 2 seconds before it starts. Then you go into pixel shift mode. You've got 2 modes. Well, you got off and you got on for single shot. So single sequence, so you press it once, takes a sequence of shots, and then it puts the camera back into its normal mode. Or you can put it on series, where it will just keep taking pixel shift shots every time you press the shutter button. So I only want to do one sequence, so I'm just going to do it in single photo. So I go into the normal camera mode. Everything else is the same. It just says press the shutter release and it will start the sequence. I set the camera up exactly the way I would do for any other normal shots, like my aperture, got everything in manual mode, white balance, all that kind of stuff. I just leave it as I would do normally for a landscape shot. The only difference is that when I press the shutter button, waits 2 seconds. I don't know if you can hear that. It's going away and doing its shots. So I don't have to touch anything. Once the sequence is done, it's done. It will do it all automatically for you. And if I press play, I can actually have a look at all 32 raw files you've got there. So you still get all the original raw files. And then when I get back, we'll merge that into this single NEFX file. We'll process it and we'll have a look. And we'll have a look at mostly some of the other examples because, you know, the light's not been great this morning. But I've got plenty of examples of what I've been capturing over the last few months. And we'll have a look to see whether this is a feature that you're likely to use. Welcome back. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to merge those pixel shift images, and it's really easy to do. So I've already imported the files from my camera onto my computer hard drive. I did this through the normal Lightroom import process, so I've got all my NEF files already on my desktop computer. Normally, well, certainly I was hoping that with the new version of Lightroom, which just came out, which is 13.3, which is the latest version at the time of publishing this video, that the pixel shift merge feature would then become an integrated feature of Lightroom. It's not, unfortunately, so we're going to have to stick with the way I've been doing it for the last few months, and that's using NX Studio. It's not a big problem, it's just a bit of a round trip, but it actually works really well. So if you want to get a copy of NX Studio, it's by Nikon, it's Nikon NX Studio, it's free to download, just Google it, get it downloaded, and I'll show you now how you create those merged files. So I've got NX Studio open here. You can see a list of my folders down the side here. I've got this one here of Baird and Snow, which is where I just was. Now, if you have a look at the information here, a little tag at the bottom of these pictures, it shows which ones were already part of a pixel shift sequence. So NX Studio is intelligent enough to realize, yes, this is part of a pixel shift sequence because when it gets shot on the camera, they get tagged. I can click on the pixel shift merge button at the top here, and it will look at the entire directory and pick out which sequences are pixel shift. So this makes it real easy. You don't have to remember which was the start of the sequence, which was the end of the sequence. NX Studio will go in there, pick it all out for you, and then tell you which sequence, or ask you which sequences you wish to merge. If I just quickly come out of that for a second and go to another one, if I have a look here, this is where I did some tests with 4 and 8 shots as well, so it automatically knows how many shots are in a sequence. So it's really quite easy to pick out. You don't have to find your pictures and which ones are in a sequence. But if I go to Pixel Shift Merge, I'm going to pick this bottom one because I've already done the other one. I just wanted to create one image, so merge all 32 photographs, create one single NFX file. You can do also stuff about where it goes, what names it's called, etc., etc. And then you just click and start. And then depending on the power of your computer, it may take a few seconds like it does in mine, or it might take a few minutes. But essentially that will just go ahead, automatically do its thing, and you end up with a NEFX file at the end of it. Okay, that's the sequence complete. If I look on NX Studio here, I can see I've got my merged.nfx file. Now, of course, I could edit the picture in NX Studio, but my workflow, at least anyway for me, is Lightroom. So all I need to do now is import that NEFX file into Lightroom. And I think previous to the version 13.3, it did have the ability to read those .nefx files. It just doesn't currently have the capability to merge and create an NEFX file, but it has had the ability to read an NEFX file. So you need to check your own post-processing package to find out whether it'll actually handle a NEFX file. It's a bit of a mouthful, this one. So let's jump into Lightroom. So I've imported the file using the standard import routine for Lightroom. As you can see here, I've got my merged NEFX. I don't know why I find it so difficult to say. It's just NEFX. That's all I need to say, NEFX. I've got my merged NEFX file there in front of me, and it's ready to be edited just like I would do any other picture. There's nothing special that I need to do. The only thing I like to do in terms of Lightroom is just to tidy my view up a bit. So if I go to the grid view, what I tend to do is select the NEFX file and the 32 NEF files, and I tend to put them in a stack. That's 32, 33, because it includes the NEFX file as well. And I will group that into a stack. And actually what I'll do is I'll put the NEFX, come on Julian, it's not that difficult. The NEFX file, oh it is at the top, right. So I will tend to mark that one as well. I'll give it a color code so I know, make it a wee bit easier to find that file in amongst everything else. If I, where's the color? Add color, come on. There it is, set color label to purple. So there it is at the top of the stack. So like I say, I will just edit that picture as I would do normally. Now, because 32, if I certainly do a 32 file stack, can take up quite a lot of space. So typically what I've done in the past is once I've got that NEFX file, and I'm pretty sure that I don't need the original NEF files, or any of the frames of the 32, I will just go ahead and delete them and then just work from the NEFX file. That just makes it a little bit tidier for your hard disk, because you do a lot of these sequences, you will consume a lot of space. But now, like I say, now that that file is in Lightroom, it's ready to be edited. So next up, we'll have a look at some of the examples I've been shooting of the various different pixel shift modes, and we'll see if it really makes any difference. Welcome back. So just before we jump into Lightroom, just to let you know, the photographs that I'm going to use for the comparisons are genuine photographs that I've captured out in the field. They're proper landscape photographs. So I've tried where at all possible not to engineer situations where it will exaggerate the functionality of this, particular feature. Trying to keep things kind of as natural as possible. So if I don't notice any difference between the two features, the two images, I will say so, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the feature doesn't work. It just means it hasn't necessarily delivered any benefit in that particular situation. The other thing is also you are watching this on a YouTube stream, so there's a lot of video compression involved. So where there are some slight differences, you might not actually be able to tell the difference on the screen. I can, so you might just have to take my word for it. And finally, I'm not trying to sell you this feature. It's not my job to make it sound like it's amazing and it's going to fix all. I'm just going to share my personal experience with you, try and give you an idea of how I've experienced it, so you can take some information away and try it for yourself. So I'm not trying to sell it to you, just trying to share some real world experiences of what I've had with this particular feature, the pixel shift. So let's jump into Lightroom and we'll have a look at the first pair of photographs. So the first pair of photographs, I've used just the 4-image stack. So this is supposed to give me better color reproduction. So I've got 2 images here from Bowman's nose. So if we have a look at the 2 images here side by side, like I said, the pixel shift one's on the left, the original raw file is on the right. So if we have a look inside, there's not much to see any difference with. If I'm absolutely honest, having a scan about, the colors all kind of look the same. I can't see much difference. I will add that all these images are unprocessed, so any of the images I show you in the comparison, unless I say otherwise, are all the raw files straight out of the camera, no image processing has been applied. So for those two, using the 4-image stack, I literally can't see anything different between the 2 images. And again, as I said in the intro for this section, that's not to say that this feature doesn't work. It's just not made any difference in this particular scenario. So that's an important thing to say there. So let's have a look at an 8-shot image where that gives you better color reproduction and gives you better noise reduction. Okay, again, we've got the pixel shift image. It's obviously comprising of 8 individual raw files merged, and then on the right, we've got one of those original raw files. Now, if we have a look at the rock stack, again, I can't see much difference. It all looks pretty clean, certainly in terms of noise. If I have a check what these were shot at ISO 640. So it's a reasonably low ISO even for the Z8. But if I scan through the image, there probably is a small area that I did identify earlier, if I can find it again. Yeah, it's probably around here. Now this is where the limitations of YouTube and video compression are really you're going to think, Julian, honestly, there is no difference. But I can see a slight difference. So in the background here of this woodland area, I wouldn't classify it as noisy, but there's a little bit of noise. Nothing I would be particularly worried about, I have to say. But the image on the left is noticeably cleaner. So it has done a job there. I'm not denying it, but it's not significant. It's not something I particularly worry about, I have to admit. But then again, ISO 640 is a relatively low ISO, so probably nothing to worry about there. So some difference there, but let's have a look at a more complicated scenario. Right, in this example, this is a 32 image merge now. So this is the full capability. On the left again, I've got the pixel shift image, and on the right, I've got one of those single frames from that. So these were shot at ISO 800. Let's have a closer look. So again, I can't see much difference. It all looks pretty the same, but if I have a look at this house down here, now I can't see it at this magnification. Oops. If I zoom into 200 or thereabouts, and I do the same on this side to 100% or thereabouts, I can clearly see a difference now. So whereas there's a little bit of noise on the roof of this house, there is no noise at all on the roof of this house. It's as clean as it would be as if it was an ISO 64 image. There is a noticeable difference now between the image on the right and the image on the left. There is a clear difference. So I find some other bits. Okay, so if I zoom in a little bit to the further away subjects there, if you look at this telegraph pole here, you know, it's defined. I can tell it's a telegraph pole, but it's much sharper, much more clearly defined in the pixel shift image. So there's lots of little details around there, but around the woodlands here, you can clearly see things are a little bit more defined, that extra resolution, there's less noise, it's just a cleaner, more detailed image. So it's clearly made a difference in that photograph. However, let me just do a quick comparison between, this is obviously shot at ISO 800, 1/50 of a second. I've got a raw file that I shot at my normal settings at ISO 64. So let's make a quick comparison of that. Okay, again, I've got my pixel shift image on the left, and I've got my raw file shot at ISO 64. The detail on that crack, there's definitely more detail. It's a little bit sharper. So there's I'm starting to notice the differences now. If I zoom out a bit and I go to the roof of that house, again, there is clear differences there with the level of detail. The noise levels are the same as I would expect. The one on the right, the single raw file, was shot at ISO 64. The pixel shift image with the 32 merged images will reduce the noise from the original source files, we're at 800. So again, I'm getting that clean raw file, that clean merged raw file with no noise, but I'm noticeably getting additional detail. That house is sharper, everything about it is a little bit clearer. If I have a scroll about, there's another object away in the distance I can have a look at. So if I bring that, I don't know what that black thing is there in the distance. This will be hard for you to see, but I can clearly see it's more defined than it is on the left-hand image compared to how it is on the right-hand image. The pixel shift image has given me more detail. The trees are a little bit sharper as well. So this has definitely made a difference, merging those 32 files together. Certainly the resolution's better and the image is clearer. However, you know, the less noise is a bit of a moot point as far as I'm concerned, because I would have shot at ISO 64, so I wouldn't have had those noise problems in the first place, whereas I shot the pixel shift in ISO 800 just to get through the sequence quickly. But that aside, the resolution and the result, even though I've had to push up the ISO and shoot that sequence quickly, has resulted in a high resolution image with more detail, but with the same level of noise as if I had shot it at ISO 64. One final example, again, this is a 32 image merge. These actually been shot on exactly the same settings. So I've got a standard raw file, how I would shoot it on the right there. That's 1/4 of a second ISO 64 f8, and the pixel shift merge, the sequence was shot also at 1/4 of a second f8 ISO 64. So everything is exactly the same. I've not had to change settings in order to get me through the sequence. If I have a look at the spire here in the distance, and if I have a look at the one on the right, which is the raw file, I can clearly see a difference. Again, this is going to be difficult perhaps for you to see, But if I look at this kind of, I don't know if it's a window area here, I can see the lines through, I don't know what those lines are, but I can see lines through there, and I can't see them here. It's just a blurry mess. And then that's not to put down the quality of the image that I've got there, but it's just that there is clearly more detail. The hands in the clock, they're more defined. There was a noticeable difference here. Now that's another little bit area that I want to have a look at. Just down here, if I have a look at the cafe sign here, where it says cafe, I mean, the image on the right, the original, just a single raw file. You know, I'd never go, oh, that's bad, that's poor. But if I look at the pixel shift on the left, it is clearer. There's more detail there. I mean, I'm on the right-hand image. I'm at what percentage am I zoomed at? Just over 200%. I can just about to start to see the pixelation around the curving of the letter, and even at nearly 100% on this one, it's giving the same level, equivalent magnification. It's a lot more detailed. So without a doubt, that pixel shift, I mean, even if you weren't going to do denoising, in the right circumstances, the right situation, you can get more detail from your photographs. But that's all very well. That's me really pixel peeping here. I'm digging in deep there and I'm looking for really small details. Does it make any difference in, let's say, a real world situation? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab, I'm going to take, two of the images from Bauman's nose. I'm going to process them exactly the same. Not going to do anything different. I'm going to print them off on the same paper using the same settings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a blind test. So I've already printed the image, and in the back of one of them, the one with the pixel shift, I've just written PS on the back of them, and I've shuffled them up, and I've kind of forgotten which one's which already. I can't tell the difference. And I'm going to see, having a look at the prints, can I actually notice any difference? That'll be the key test for me to find out what that's like. So let's try the blind test, the print blind test next. Right, sorry, just before we do print blind test, I just want to have a look at an extreme example. So most of the pixel shift images I've been showing you here have all been relatively short. Shutter speeds, 1/50th of a second, normally about there. So it gets through the sequence quite quickly. What happens though, if you've got longer shutter speeds and you've got moving subjects? Probably not the ideal combination for pixel shift, but I wanted to kind of push it to see what would happen if I pushed it really quite far. So what I've got here on the screen is I've got two photographs of Trevose Head in Cornwall. On the right there's the original raw file, and then on the left I've got a pixel shift image there. The image on the right was shot at 1 second f13 ISO 125. So that would have been the settings that I would have been looking at to create the photograph of the right amount of movement in the water. Unprocessed, it looks quite well. That should process quite well. But what happens if I did a 32 image pixel shift shoot of that? How does it handle it? What am I going to get over? Now, if you look at the image on the left, which is the pixel shift image, you probably think, actually, it looks all right. It looks like you've got a bit of a long exposure thing going there. Could it be a replacement for if you forgot your neutral density filter? Well, no. If I have a closer look at the image on the left there, it's gone quite well, as you can see there. This shouldn't matter whether you're even on a YouTube stream or not. You can see there's all sorts of digital artifacts there on the go. I'm not sure what causes that. This could be just a limitation of what should do. Bear in mind, that sequence of 32 images was taken over 32 seconds because each photograph was 1 second. So I mean, I've really pushed it. I mean, you wouldn't do a 32 image stack if you've got so much movement in a sea and each frame is 1 second. So I'm not saying it's because it was shot at each frame was 1 second, it's because each frame was 1 second and there was a lot of movement within each of that frames, and then you multiply that up. So I'm assuming this is the limitations coming through. It could be a bug in the software and it might get fixed, but I wouldn't expect it to. That to me just looks like a limitation. So it's just something to be aware of if you are shooting a 32 image stack. If nothing's moving, then your exposure time probably doesn't matter. But obviously with something like this is an extreme example where you've got the sea and it's constantly moving. Probably not great. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to show you that, you know, you do start to find the limitations of this software if you do push it a little bit. But I will do the print comparison now, the print blind test, and straight after that, I've got another extreme example. It doesn't have the artifacts of this one, but yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting to do while I was up in Harris and Lewis. It's quite an interesting little experiment, so I'll share that with you later as well. Right, hello, welcome back. Let's have a look at the prints to see if we can actually see the difference. Now, I genuinely don't know which one's which. I have written on the back, but I've shuffled them up, left them alone, forgotten. I've got nothing invested in this test, so I might as well try and make it as honest as possible. So they're both printed on the PF Luster from Photospeed, the 310. Very nice paper. Casual look at a standard view and distance. Can't see any difference. If I'm absolutely honest. Nope. I can't see any difference. I've got my little loop, so we'll have a closer look. So if I have a look at the crack down one bit of Bowman's nose, it's exciting stuff, isn't it? Yeah, I can't tell the difference. Maybe marginally this one. I'll have a look at the house. If there are differences, I'm either imagining them or it's very minor. But my money's on this one's a pixel shift. But honestly, by the smallest of margins, I mean, if you're looking at this as standard view and distance, these are both A3 prints, by the way, you'd be really hard pushed to tell. So let's find out. I'm going to be quite embarrassed if this isn't. Is this a pixel shift one? No, it's not. This one is. So it just shows you how right, well, I don't know whether it's right or wrong or not, but I genuinely couldn't really tell the difference. So I think what differences I were seeing were probably in my head, probably. Interesting. I've got another two images though, hang on. And again, I've selected this image of the Dartmoor scene there with the church. Again, genuinely no idea which one's which. Now let's look at that church spire, because that was quite a key thing. I mean, even at this print size, I can't even read the word cafe anyway. So I'm gonna have to get the loop out for this one again. I mean, it's perfectly detailed. There's nothing wrong with it. Have a look at the cafe sign. I can read cafe on it, not a problem. So I mean, it's fine. Church in this one. Oh, I can't tell the difference. Oh, I can't tell. I really can't tell. Right. I'm going to take a punt again. I'm going to say it's... See, I think I can read the cafe sign slightly better in that one, but I can read the clock slightly better in that one. I'm just going to go with this one, but really, I can't tell. And I'm wrong again. There we go. Yep, it was this one. So, I think it goes to say that if you're a pixel peeper, you know, you can have a lot of fun with the pixel shift. But certainly it prints this size in terms of the detail that I get. I can't tell the difference. So I think unless you're printing really big, the 180 megapixels is probably not going to yield any better results. The time I would probably say it would be really good if I wanted to do a panoramic crop of that scene, then I'd still have lots and lots of megapixels left. So in that scenario, I could use it for this scene, but for general image quality, yeah, there's really not much in it. Just before I did the blind print comparison there, I did tease you with saying that I was going to have a look at an even more extreme example of pixel shift shooting. So this time we're going to have to jump into Photoshop, and it'll become apparent why I'm in Photoshop. Let's have a look. So here we have a panoramic. This is a view towards Luscantire Beach on the Isle of Harris. I know, admittedly, it's not a great panoramic image. There are some technical faults with it. It's not particularly great light. I wasn't really expecting much from this, but that's not the point. The point is what I've done to create this particular panoramic. It's made up of 13 individual frames. I've taken vertical frames and moved across the scene to give me this wide panoramic. I think you can guess where I'm going with this one. So, but for each of those individual frames, those vertical frames, I took a 32 image pixel shift shoot as well. So each of those individual vertical slices as 180 megapixels, and then I've merged that together in Photoshop. I've had to do it in Photoshop because when you take 13 180 megapixel files in Lightroom and you say create panoramic, it just goes, nah, I can't do it. It just doesn't, it can't do it. So you have to go into Photoshop. It's got the processing power to do it. And to be fair to it, it has done it. It's created, well, I can show you how big the file is. So if I go into image and I go to image size and I go that to pixels, you can see it's 60,000 pixels by 16,000 pixels. So that's 60 megapixels by 16 megapixels, which is around, I think it's 997 megapixels. So it's just shy of a gigapixel. So it is actually possible to create really large files using pixel shift. If you had a nice panoramic scene, there wasn't anything moving in it. I mean, this is probably a poor example because I'm shooting the sea, but it is possible to do. You can't do it in Lightroom. You have to do it all. You can merge it still in NX Studio, the pixel shift frames, but you have to do the panoramic merge inside Photoshop, and then when you save it, it gets saved as a PSB file, Photoshop big file it's called. Anyway, it's not a file I'm going to process. It's not great light. There's some technical faults to it caused by my shooting. So, but I just thought it was an interesting example. You can in some instances keep on pushing this. Anyway, so I thought I'd show you that. So pixel shift shooting, does it work? Yes. Do you need to use it for every shot? No. But is it worth knowing? Is it a good feature to have? Yes. Just like any other feature in your camera, you need to know how it works and, more importantly, when to use it. Because clearly you don't need to use it for every photograph. It doesn't work in every scenario. It might not yield benefits in every scenario. So if it's a camera you've got that has this technology, then you need to kind of work out when you want to use it. So the best way to do that is to play with it, experiment with it, find out in which scenarios it works for you. Now, even during this test, okay, I wasn't able to identify the pixel shift image from the prints. That tells me something that at normal viewing distances, prints like A3, or certainly on your telephone, on your mobile phone, or on your computer screen, not zoomed in at 200%, you probably can't tell the difference. But that doesn't mean I'm never not going to use it. There might be instances for that scene looking down at that Dartmoor church there. That is now a really good opportunity for me to do a single image panoramic crop and still have lots of megapixels. So even while I might not be able to see more detail on that print, I can still retain quite a high resolution for a panoramic crop, and then I can still print big. So yeah, it's one of those things that it's just, you should know how to use it and you know when to use it. And hopefully the information in this video has given you a little bit of an insight into pixel shift technology. I'm sure it's going to come to other Z cameras, hopefully maybe the Z9 if you're a Z9 owner, and perhaps some of the new Z cameras that come down. And I know other camera manufacturers have had similar types of technology available for a while. But if you have used pixel shift, or you've used these other kind of types of high resolution technologies from any kind of camera manufacturer, please do let me know in the comments. I'll be interested to hear how you got on it, particularly in the context of landscape photographs. How have you used it in your landscape photography? But like I say, I hope this information has been useful to you, and I'll see you in the next one.